My daughter sat in a courtroom laughing at me while her husband tried to prove I was insane. And for a moment, I let them believe it. I let them think I was weak, confused, finished. Because what they didn't know was that by the time that hearing ended, they wouldn't just lose the case, they would lose everything. If you enjoy real-life stories about betrayal, karma, and people getting exactly what they deserve, you're going to want to hear this one. My name is Alina Price. I'm 71 years old, and until recently I was nothing more than a quiet old woman living in a guest house behind my daughter's mansion. At least, that's what everyone believed. I kept to myself, dressed simply, and spoke only when necessary. People assumed I was fading, like time had already started erasing me, but they were wrong. I wasn't fading, I was watching. 2 weeks before the court hearing, my son-in-law Greg came to me with that familiar polished smile, the kind he always used when he wanted something. He sat across from me, confident, almost rehearsed, and asked for $500,000. He called it an opportunity, said it would double in 6 months, but something about it didn't sit right with me. The numbers didn't make sense, and neither did his urgency. So I told him no, calmly, firmly. And that single word changed everything, because just 1 week later I was served with legal papers. My own daughter, along with her husband, had filed a petition to have me declared mentally incompetent. At first, I thought it had to be some kind of mistake, a misunderstanding that would be cleared up with a simple conversation. But that illusion didn't last long. They claimed I was paranoid, that I didn't understand money anymore, that I was becoming a danger to my own finances. But that wasn't even the worst part. The worst part was realizing this hadn't just happened overnight. This had been building quietly, carefully for years, and I didn't realize it at the time, but I wasn't just being pushed aside. I was being erased. Let me ask you something. If your own child tried to take everything from you like this, would you forgive them, or would you fight back? That night I started digging, quietly, without letting anyone know. I went through records, transactions, old files I hadn't looked at in years, and what I found changed everything. Greg wasn't successful, he wasn't building anything, he was drowning. His so-called luxury resort project was collapsing under millions in debt. Contractors hadn't been paid, investors were pulling out. It wasn't a business, it was a ticking time bomb. And then it hit me. He didn't want my money to grow anything, he needed it to survive. And when I refused to give it to him, he decided to take everything instead. But there was still one question that didn't make sense. If he was that desperate, how was he paying for lawyers? Lawsuits like this aren't cheap. Corruption is even more expensive, so I followed the money, and what I found next broke something inside me. Years ago, after my husband passed away, I created a foundation in his name. It was meant to fund cancer research, something meaningful that would honor his life, and I trusted my daughter to run it. I never checked the accounts. Never questioned the numbers, because she was my daughter. That was my mistake. When I finally looked at the financial records, the account was nearly empty, over $3 million gone. The transactions were all there, clear as day. Large payments, fake services, shell companies, and every trail led back to one place: Greg. But what hurt the most wasn't just the theft, it was the signatures. Every single transfer had been approved by my daughter. That was the moment everything changed. Greg didn't surprise me. I expected that kind of greed from him. But she wasn't manipulated, she wasn't confused, she knew exactly what she was doing. She helped steal money from her own father's legacy just to destroy her own mother. And in that moment, I stopped seeing her as my little girl. I saw her for what she had become. That's when I made my decision. I wasn't going to argue, I wasn't going to defend myself, I was going to end it. Completely, quietly, and in a way they would never see coming. There was one more piece to the puzzle. Greg owed millions to a private investment firm. The kind of firm that doesn't negotiate, they eliminate problems. And I knew the man behind it. Years ago I had helped him when no one else would, so I made one call, just one, and within an hour I owned Greg's debt, all of it. Which meant I didn't just have evidence anymore, I had control. The day of the hearing, I walked into that courtroom wearing a suit I hadn't touched in years. It felt unfamiliar but necessary, and the moment my daughter saw me, she laughed. Actually laughed like I was already defeated, but that wasn't even the most interesting part. The judge looked at me and paused. There was recognition in his eyes, and in that moment, everything shifted. Their so-called expert witness took the stand first, a man claiming to be a respected medical professional. He spoke confidently, describing me as unstable, confused, incapable. But my attorney, Avery, dismantled him piece by piece. Within minutes, the truth came out. He wasn't even a doctor. He was a disgraced dentist who had lost his license years ago. He had been paid to lie. And right there in that courtroom, he was arrested. At that point, what would you have done? Would you have stopped there or kept going because I wasn't finished? Then Greg took the stand, and that was his biggest mistake. Under pressure, people don't just defend themselves, they reveal themselves. He tried to stay composed, but little by little, the cracks began to show. He admitted his financial struggles. He admitted the failing project. And without realizing it, he exposed everything. That's when I made my move. I revealed the full truth, his debts, his lies, the stolen money, and then I handed him the final document. The one thing he never expected: foreclosure, seizure. Ownership, because he didn't owe the bank anymore, he owed me, and I called in everything. His house, his cars, his business, all of it was gone in an instant. If you believe karma always comes back, hit the like button. Because this was only the beginning. Greg went to trial not long after. The evidence was overwhelming. He was convicted and sentenced to 10 years in prison. Everything he built, everything he pretended to be, gone. And my daughter, she tried to claim she didn't know, tried to distance herself from it all, but the signatures didn't lie. She avoided prison but not consequences. She was sentenced to 2,000 hours of community service in a dementia ward, taking care of people who had actually lost their minds. The same condition she tried to fake for me. 6 months later, she came to see me. She didn't look the same. The confidence was gone, the arrogance replaced with something else. Something quieter. She asked me why I didn't stop her, why I let it go so far, and I told her the truth, because if I had stopped her, she wouldn't have learned anything. Some lessons aren't taught with words, they're taught with consequences. She didn't destroy herself that day in court. She had been doing that for years. I just made sure the moment finally came where everything caught up to her. I don't believe in revenge, I believe in balance. And in the end, everything balances. You might know someone who needs to hear this, someone who's been underestimated or pushed aside. And if stories like this stay with you, make sure you subscribe, because there's a lot more coming.